What would you give up for love? Your pride, your comfort, your dreams. Now imagine this, you're worth billions, private jets, penthouses in every major city, a name that commands rooms. And then one day, you meet her and suddenly, none of it matters anymore. You'd burn it all down just to see her smile. Sounds like fiction, right? But for Marcus's way, it was Tuesday, the Dorchester Hotel in London, 2009. The kind of place where champagne flows like water and silence costs extra. Marcus Way stands at the edge of a charity gala, his $10,000 suit tailored to perfection, his presence creating a gravitational pull among the elite who orbit him. At 34, he's already built an empire, tech, real estate, investments that turn millions into hundreds of millions overnight. The kind of wealth that makes other rich people feel poor. He doesn't smile much, doesn't need to. When you have that kind of money, people laugh at your silence. Then she walks in, not through the main entrance. Mind you, through a side door, carrying a violin case, wearing a simple black dress that probably costs less than the hors d'oeuvres on a single tray. Her name is Elena Novak, a session musician hired for the evening's entertainment. She's 27, classically trained and completely unaware that in 3 minutes and 42 seconds, she's going to accidentally lock eyes with a man who will dismantle his entire life for her. Marcus doesn't believe in love at first sight. He believes in market analysis, strategic partnerships, and calculated risk. But when Elena begins to play a haunting interpretation of Vivaldi that seems to pull the soul right out of his chest, something in his perfectly constructed world shifts. It's not the music. He's heard the best musicians money can buy. It's the way she plays with her eyes closed, like she's somewhere else entirely, somewhere his billions can't reach. After the performance, he does something unusual. He approaches her not with confidence, but with curiosity. That was remarkable, he says, and his voice carries the slight tremor of someone off script. She looks at him, really looks not at his watch of Patek Philippe worth more than her annual income, but at his face. Thank you, she says, and starts packing her violin. That's it. No follow-up question, no recognition of who he is. She might as well have said, "That's nice, dear," and patted his head. Marcus's way is not used to being dismissed. He's also not used to wanting to be undismissed quite so badly. "Can I take you to dinner?" he asks. She pauses, studies him with those dark, intelligent eyes. Why? It's a simple question. It destroys him. Because he doesn't have an answer that doesn't sound hollow. Because I'm rich. Because I'm powerful. Because people don't usually say no to me. None of it feels right. Because I'd like to know what makes someone play like that, he finally says. She considers this, nods. All right, but somewhere quiet. I don't do well with crowds. He takes her to the most expensive restaurant in London. Private room, Michelin stars. A menu without prices. She orders the second cheapest wine and barely touches her food. Instead, she talks about Shostakovich's hidden protests in his symphonies, about how her grandmother taught her to hear the silence between notes, about a stray cat she feeds near her flat in Brixton. Marcus, who once negotiated a $200 million merger over dinner without breaking a sweat, finds himself completely lost. He's in a room with her, but she's still somewhere he can't reach. 6 weeks later, he's in love. Not the casual, convenient kind, the kind that keeps you up at night. The kind that makes boardroom meetings feel like prison sentences because every minute away from her is a minute wasted. But there's a problem. Actually, several problems, all interconnected like a tragedy waiting to happen. Problem 1. Elena's not impressed by his money. In fact, she seems uncomfortable with it. When he sends a car for her, she takes the bus. When he offers to fly her to Paris for the weekend, she says she'd rather walk through Hampstead Heath. When he buys her a necklace that costs more than her violin, she politely asks him to return it. Problem 2. His world is starting to notice. Business partners raise eyebrows. His mother, a formidable woman who built her fortune in Shanghai real estate, delivers a very clear message. She's not suitable. Translation: she's not rich. She's not connected. She's nobody. Problem 3. Elena's starting to pull away. Not dramatically, subtly. She returns calls a few hours later instead of immediately. She's busy more often. Marcus, who can read market trends like poetry, can feel the distance growing. One night, in her tiny flat so small his closet back home is bigger, she says, "I can't keep doing this, doing what he asks, though he knows, being the girl you visit when you want to feel human. I see how you live, Marcus, the yachts, the parties, the people who smile at you with their teeth but not their eyes. I don't fit there, I don't want to fit there." He takes her hands, they're calloused from violin strings. "Real, then I won't fit there either." She laughs, sad and soft. "You don't mean that, try me." But she doesn't believe him, and honestly, why should she? People like Marcus Way don't give up empires for session musicians from Brixton. That's not how the world works. So he shows her. Not with words, with actions. He starts small. Cancels a meeting in Singapore to watch her perform at a small venue in Camden. Chooses a quiet dinner at a pub over a gala he's supposed to host. His assistant thinks he's having a breakdown. His mother thinks he's being manipulated. His business partners start using words like unfocused and liability. But here's what nobody understands. Marcus is seeing clearly for the first time in his life. Every dollar he's made, every deal he's closed. What would you give up for love? Your pride, your comfort, your dreams. Now imagine this, you're worth billions. Private jets, penthouses in every major city. A name that commands rooms. And then one day, you meet her and suddenly, none of it matters anymore. You'd burn it all down just to see her smile. Sounds like fiction, right? But for Marcus's Way, it was Tuesday, the Dorchester Hotel in London, 2009. The kind of place where champagne flows like water and silence costs extra. Marcus Way stands at the edge of a charity gala, his $10,000 suit tailored to perfection, his presence creating a gravitational pull among the elite who orbit him. At 34, he's already built an empire. Tech, real estate, investments that turn millions into hundreds of millions overnight. The kind of wealth that makes other rich people feel poor. He doesn't smile much, doesn't need to. When you have that kind of money, people laugh at your silence. Then she walks in, not through the main entrance. Mind you, through a side door, carrying a violin case, wearing a simple black dress that probably costs less than the hors d'oeuvres on a single tray. Her name is Elena Novak, a session musician hired for the evening's entertainment. She's 27, classically trained and completely unaware that in 3 minutes and 42 seconds, she's going to accidentally lock eyes with a man who will dismantle his entire life for her. Marcus doesn't believe in love at first sight. He believes in market analysis, strategic partnerships, and calculated risk. But when Elena begins to play a haunting interpretation of Vivaldi that seems to pull the soul right out of his chest, something in his perfectly constructed world shifts. It's not the music. He's heard the best musicians money can buy. It's the way she plays with her eyes closed, like she's somewhere else entirely, somewhere his billions can't reach. After the performance, he does something unusual. He approaches her not with confidence, but with curiosity. "That was remarkable," he says, and his voice carries the slight tremor of someone off script. She looks at him. Really looks not at his watch, a Patek Philippe worth more than her annual income, but at his face. "Thank you," she says, and starts packing her violin. That's it. No follow-up question, no recognition of who he is. She might as well have said, "That's nice, dear," and patted his head. Marcus's Way is not used to being dismissed. He's also not used to wanting to be undismissed quite so badly. "Can I take you to dinner?" he asks. She pauses, studies him with those dark, intelligent eyes. Why? It's a simple question. It destroys him. Because he doesn't have an answer that doesn't sound hollow. Because I'm rich. Because I'm powerful. Because people don't usually say no to me. None of it feels right. Because I'd like to know what makes someone play like that, he finally says. She considers this, nods. "All right, but somewhere quiet. I don't do well with crowds." He takes her to the most expensive restaurant in London. Private room, Michelin stars, a menu without prices. She orders the second cheapest wine and barely touches her food. Instead, she talks about Shostakovich's hidden protests in his symphonies, about how her grandmother taught her to hear the silence between notes, about a stray cat she feeds near her flat in Brixton. Marcus, who once negotiated a $200 million merger over dinner without breaking a sweat, finds himself completely lost. He's in a room with her, but she's still somewhere he can't reach. 6 weeks later, he's in love. Not the casual, convenient kind, the kind that keeps you up at night. The kind that makes boardroom meetings feel like prison sentences because every minute away from her is a minute wasted. But there's a problem. Actually, several problems, all interconnected like a tragedy waiting to happen. Problem 1. Elena's not impressed by his money. In fact, she seems uncomfortable with it. When he sends a car for her, she takes the bus. When he offers to fly her to Paris for the weekend, she says she'd rather walk through Hampstead Heath. When he buys her a necklace that costs more than her violin, she politely asks him to return it. Problem 2. His world is starting to notice. Business partners raise eyebrows. His mother, a formidable woman who built her fortune in Shanghai real estate, delivers a very clear message. She's not suitable. Translation: she's not rich. She's not connected. She's nobody. Problem 3. Elena's starting to pull away. Not dramatically, subtly. She returns calls a few hours later instead of immediately. She's busy more often. Marcus, who can read market trends like poetry, can feel the distance growing. One night, in her tiny flat so small his closet back home is bigger, she says, "I can't keep doing this," doing what he asks, though he knows, being the girl you visit when you want to feel human. "I see how you live, Marcus, the yachts, the parties, the people who smile at you with their teeth but not their eyes. I don't fit there, I don't want to fit there." He takes her hands, they're calloused from violin strings. "Real, then I won't fit there either." She laughs, sad and soft. "You don't mean that, try me." But she doesn't believe him, and honestly, why should she? People like Marcus Way don't give up empires for session musicians from Brixton. That's not how the world works. So he shows her. Not with words, with actions. He starts small. Cancels a meeting in Singapore to watch her perform at a small venue in Camden. Chooses a quiet dinner at a pub over a gala he's supposed to host. His assistant thinks he's having a breakdown. His mother thinks he's being manipulated. His business partners start using words like unfocused and liability. But here's what nobody understands. Marcus is seeing clearly for the first time in his life. Every dollar he's made, every deal he's closed, every empire he's built, it's all felt like moving pieces on a board. Impressive but empty. With Alina eating cheap takeaway on her floor while she tells him about the mathematics hidden in Batch's compositions, he feels like he's finally woken up. 6 months into their relationship, his mother issues an ultimatum. Her or the family business. Choose. He thinks she's bluffing. She's not. Marcus stands in his London penthouse, city lights sprawling beneath him like conquered territory, and realizes he's at the edge of something irreversible. He could keep the fortune, keep the power, keep the life he's built. All he has to do is let Alina go. Plenty of other women would be thrilled to be with him. Women who understand his world. Women who fit. But when he closes his eyes, he doesn't see empires or skylines. He sees her eyes closed, playing violin like she's talking to God. His phone rings. It's his lawyer. The paperwork is ready whenever you are, Mr. Wei. But I have to advise you one more time. This is financial suicide. You're walking away from billions, from your legacy, and for what? Marcus looks out at the city. His city, or so he thought. For everything that actually matters, he says, and that's when he makes the decision that will either save his soul or destroy his life. Maybe both. The first call Marcus makes is to his brother. They haven't spoken in 8 months, not since Marcus walked away from everything their family built. The phone rings 4 times before James answers, his voice carrying that particular brand of coldness reserved for traitors and fools. "I need help," Marcus says, and the words taste like ash in his mouth. There's a pause, long enough for Marcus to hear his own heartbeat. Then James laughs, not cruelly, but not kindly either. "You need help. That's rich, no pun intended." Actually, yes, pun very much intended, because you're not rich anymore, are you? You threw that away for your little musician, James, please. Elena's pregnant. There are complications. Medical issues that require money. They require money. The thing you used to have oceans of, the thing you signed away, like it was Monopoly cash. James's voice sharpens. "Tell me, brother, how does it feel, being ordinary, needing something you can't just buy?" Marcus closes his eyes. The hospital corridor is fluorescent bright and smells like antiseptic and fear. "I'm not asking for myself. No, you're asking for the woman who cost you everything. The woman mother warned you about. The woman who was never worth what you paid." A beat of silence. "Here's what I'll do. I'll cover the medical expenses. Every single one. In exchange, you come back. Sign the papers. Rejoin the family business. Leave her." The world narrows to a pinpoint. "What, you heard me. Choose again. Marcus, her, or the resources to save her. You can't have both, not anymore. You made sure of that when you walked away." Marcus feels something crack inside his chest. "You're a monster." "No, I'm a businessman. You used to be one too. Now you're just a man who can't afford to save the woman he loves. Think about it." The line goes dead. Marcus stands there, phone pressed to his ear, even though there's only silence now. And for the first time since he signed those papers, he feels the full weight of what he's done. Not regret, exactly. Something worse. The realization that love and resources aren't separate things in a world that runs on money. That choosing one over the other was always going to be a false choice with real consequences. Elena finds him there 20 minutes later. She's been crying but trying to hide it, the way she does. "What did the specialist say?" he asks. "Treatable, expensive, but treatable. They gave me a list of options." She hands him a folder full of medical papers covered in numbers that make his stomach turn, not because they're unmanageable, but because they're the kind of numbers that will consume everything he has left within 6 months. Maybe less if there are complications. "We'll figure it out," he says, and here's how hollow it sounds. She looks at him with those dark eyes that see too much. "You called your brother, it's not a question." "How did you know?" "Because you have that look. That look people get when they've begged for something and been made to feel small for asking." She takes his hand. "What did he say?" Marcus wants to lie, wants to protect her from the ugliness of it. But they've built something on truth. So he tells her everything, the offer, the condition, the impossible choice disguised as a generous lifeline. She's quiet for a long time. "Then you should do it." "What?" "No, Elena, listen to me." Her voice is steady, but her hands are shaking. "I won't let our child suffer because you're too proud to go back. I won't let myself die because you wanted to prove a point about love and simplicity. If your brother can help, if going back means we survive, then you go back. I can't. You don't understand what you're asking. I understand perfectly. You're thinking about your soul, your integrity, your grand gesture of walking away. But Marcus, I'm thinking about living, about our baby living, about whether love means anything if we're too dead or broken to feel it." She's right and she's wrong, and the truth is somewhere in between, suffocating them both. Marcus pulls her close, feeling her heartbeat against his chest, and realizes that every choice has been leading to this moment, that you can't escape the gravity of the life you came from, that money isn't just numbers on a page, it's agency, possibility, the power to protect the people you love. But going back means becoming someone he spent a year learning not to be. That night, Marcus doesn't sleep. He lies next to Elena in their modest Berlin apartment, listening to her breathe, and does math in his head. His remaining assets, the medical costs, the timeline, it doesn't add up. Not without sacrifice, not without help. He could sell everything, move somewhere cheaper. But then what? Watch her suffer through subpar treatment because he's too stubborn to ask for help from people who have it. At 3 in the morning, he gets up and stands by the window. Berlin stretches out before him, dark and indifferent. He thinks about the man he was before Elena, the one who saw the world as a system to be optimized, people as assets to be leveraged, love as a luxury for people who couldn't afford better distractions. He doesn't miss that man, but he misses what that man could do. The problems he could solve with a phone call and a wire transfer. His phone buzzes. A message from James: offer expires in 48 hours. After that, you're on your own. Mother's orders. Of course it's mother's orders. She's never forgiven him for choosing Elena, for making the family look weak, for proving that her empire wasn't worth more than one woman's love. This is her punishment, her way of teaching him that you can't escape legacy, that blood and business are the same thing. Marcus types out a response, deletes it, types another, deletes that too, finally settles on, I need more time. The response is immediate. Time is a luxury. You taught me that. 48 hours. The next day, Marcus does something he hasn't done in over a year. He puts on a suit, not one of his old custom-tailored pieces, he sold those, but a decent suit from a department store that makes him look like someone trying to look important. He takes the train to the financial district and walks into a building he used to own a piece of. The receptionist doesn't recognize him. Why would she? He's nobody now. "I'm here to see Victoria Chen," he says. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but tell her Marcus Wei is here. She'll see me." The receptionist makes a call, her expression shifting from polite to surprised to uncertain. "Mr. Wei," she says, "to send you up." Victoria Chen was one of his earliest investors. She made $200 million off his first major exit. She's also one of the few people from his old life who didn't ghost him after he walked away. They've exchanged emails, careful, cordial, professional. Her office is chrome and glass and views that cost more per year than most people make. She stands when he enters, and for a moment they just look at each other. "Marcus Wei," she says, "I heard you were in Berlin, living the simple life, playing house I need alone," he says, because there's no point in pretending this is a social call. How much he names a figure, not huge by his old standards, enormous by his current ones. Victoria sits down, gestures for him to do the same. "And what do I get in return?" "My expertise, consulting. Whatever you need, I can hire consultants." "What else?" Marcus feels the trap closing. "What do you want?" She smiles. "It's not unkind, but it's not warm either. I want you to admit you were wrong, that walking away from power for love was the mistake everyone told you it was. I want you to say it out loud, right here, and mean it." "Why?" "Because I lost $20 million when you walked away. Not from anything you did directly, but from deals that fell apart because you weren't there to close them. Because your reputation was tied to mine, and when you fell, I stumbled." She leans forward. "I don't actually care if you were wrong, but I want to know if you think you were. I want to know if love is really worth what you paid for it." Marcus thinks about Alina, pale in that hospital bed, about the baby growing inside her, about the life they've built, small and strange and real. "No," he says quietly. "No, you won't say it. Or no, you don't think you were wrong." "Both. I wasn't wrong. I'd make the same choice again." Victoria studies him for a long moment. Then she does something unexpected. She laughs, really laughs. "God, you're either the most romantic man I've ever met or the most delusional. Maybe both." She opens a drawer, pulls out a checkbook, actual paper, old school, writes something, slides it across the desk. "Here." Marcus looks at the check. It's for more than he asked for. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Call it an investment in the idea that maybe you're not delusional, that maybe there's more to life than what we built. I'm not convinced, but I'm curious enough to bet on it." She stands. "Pay me back when you can, or don't. Consider it payment for all the money you made me back when you were still playing the game." Marcus takes the check with shaking hands. "Victoria, don't thank me and don't make me regret this. Just go save your girl and your kid and prove that all this meant something." He's out on the street before he realizes he's crying again. When did he become someone who cries? The check in his pocket feels like salvation and damnation in equal measure. He didn't have to go back to James, didn't have to compromise, but he had to ask for help. Had to admit that love alone doesn't keep people alive, that idealism doesn't pay medical bills. He calls Alina. "I got the money. We're going to be okay." She's crying too, relief spilling through the phone line. "How does it matter? It matters if you sold your soul to get it. I didn't sell anything. I just accepted that some bridges aren't completely burned, that maybe giving everything up doesn't mean you have to do everything alone." That night, they sit on their small balcony, drinking tea because Alina can't have alcohol anymore, and she says, "I was wrong about something." "What?" "When you first told me you gave it all up, I was terrified. I thought love wasn't enough, that we'd drown in reality and you'd resent me. But that's not what almost happened. We almost drowned because you thought love meant isolating us from everything else, being completely self-sufficient. But that's not strength, Marcus. That's just another kind of pride." He's quiet, letting her words sink in. "We're going to need help," she continues. "From friends, from family, from people who care about us. That doesn't make your choice wrong, it just makes it more complicated than either of us thought." Marcus looks out at Berlin, at the ordinary city full of ordinary people living ordinary lives, and realizes she's right. He thought walking away from his fortune would be the end of the story, the dramatic conclusion, but it was just the beginning, the easy part. Living the choice is harder, messier, more complex than any business deal he ever closed. His phone buzzes one more time. A message from his mother. "James told me about his offer. That you refused. Perhaps you're not as weak as I thought. Perhaps there's still something of me in you. The money for your family's medical needs will be handled. No conditions, no strings. Consider it a wedding gift since you never had a proper one." Marcus stares at the message, reading it 3 times to make sure he understands his mother. The woman who disowned him. The woman who made his brother issue that cruel ultimatum. She's covering everything. "What is it?" Alina asks. He shows her the phone. Watches her read it. Watches confusion and hope and suspicion cross her face. Why would she do that? Because she's testing me. Or because she actually has a heart buried under all that ice. Or because she realized that I'm never coming back and this is her way of staying connected. He takes Elena's hand. Or maybe she just wants to prove that love and money don't have to be enemies. That you can have both if you're strong enough to accept help without losing yourself. Elena leans her head on his shoulder. Your family is complicated. That's one word for it. They sit there as night falls over Berlin, to people who chose love over everything else and are slowly learning that everything else doesn't disappear just because you stop chasing it. It follows you, shapes you, demands reckoning. And Marcus realizes the real story isn't about what he gave up. It's about what he's building with what's left. Not a smaller version of his old life, but something entirely different. Something that doesn't fit in boardrooms or balance sheets. Something messier and harder and more real than anything he's ever done. The baby kicks. Elena gasps, grabs his hand. 3 years later, Marcus Way stands in a hospital room again, but this time everything is different. The light is softer. Elena sits in a chair by the window holding their daughter Sophie, who's healthy and loud and completely unaware that her existence once hung in the balance. The complications during pregnancy were managed. The treatments worked. Mother and daughter both survived, and the medical bills that could have crushed them were paid by a woman who claimed to have disowned her son but couldn't quite let him fall. Marcus watches them and thinks about the version of himself that stood in a London penthouse 3 years ago, deciding whether to sign papers that would dismantle his empire. That man thought he understood sacrifice. He thought walking away was the hard part. He was wrong. Walking away was romantic, theatrical, the kind of grand gesture that makes for good stories. Living with that choice, day after day, through medical scares and money worries and moments of doubt, that was the real test. And he passed it not by being heroic, but by being human enough to accept that he couldn't do it alone. Sophie makes a sound, something between a gurgle and a laugh. And Elena looks up at Marcus with tired eyes that still somehow shine. She's hungry again. She says, "Your daughter has expensive taste already." Marcus smiles. "She gets that from me. She gets everything good from you." Elena stands, crosses to him, lets him hold his daughter while she stretches. Sophie fits perfectly in his arms, all 8 pounds of her, worth more than every billion he ever had. "Your mother called this morning. What did she want?" "To know if we're coming to Shanghai for a new year. She wants to meet her granddaughter properly. Not through video calls." Marcus hasn't been back to Shanghai since he left. Hasn't seen his mother face to face in 3 years. Their relationship exists entirely through brief messages and the silent language of wire transfers that appear when they're needed but are never discussed. "Do you want to go?" he asks. Elena considers this. "I think Sophie should know where she comes from. All of it, not just the music and the love, but the empire too. The wealth, the complexity. She should know that her father was a king who chose to be a man, and that both versions of him matter." They go to Shanghai in February. The city has changed, grown taller and faster and more aggressive, the way cities do when money flows through them like blood. Marcus's mother lives in a penthouse that makes his old London place look modest. She opens the door herself, no staff, not for the sand for a long moment. Mother and son just look at each other. "You got old," she says in Mandarin. "You got mean," he replies in the same language, but he's smiling. "I was always mean. You just stopped caring about my approval." She looks past him to Elena, to the baby in her arms. Her expression shifts, softens in a way Marcus hasn't seen since he was a child. "May I?" Elena hands Sophie over, and Marcus watches his mother hold his daughter with a gentleness he'd forgotten she possessed. "She has your eyes," his mother says. "Stubborn eyes. She'll be troubled like her grandmother," Marcus says. His mother laughs. Actually laughs. "Come in. I made tea. Real tea, not the garbage you probably drink in Berlin." They spend 3 days in Shanghai. His mother and Elena form an unexpected alliance. 2 strong women who understand each other in ways Marcus can't quite follow. His brother James visits on the 2nd day, awkward and formal, shaking Marcus's hand like they're strangers at a business meeting. But when he holds Sophie, something in him cracks too. "She's beautiful," James says. "You did good, brother. I got lucky." "No, you got brave. There's a difference." James sets Sophie down gently in her carrier. "I was wrong about the offer, about trying to make you choose. Mother was right. You can't force someone back into a life they've outgrown." That night, on the balcony overlooking Shanghai's glittering skyline, Marcus's mother joins him while Elena puts Sophie to bed inside. They stand in silence for a while, watching the city pulse with the kind of energy that used to define his existence. "Do you regret it?" his mother asks finally, not unkindly, genuinely curious. "Sometimes I miss it," Marcus admits. "The power, the feeling of mattering at scale. But I don't regret the choice. There's a difference between missing something and wishing you'd chosen it." His mother nods slowly. "When your father died, I could have sold everything. Retired, spent my time with you and your brother. I didn't. I built the empire bigger instead. I told myself it was for you, for the family legacy, but really, I was afraid of becoming ordinary. Afraid that, without the empire, I'd just be another widow with too much money and not enough meaning." She turns to look at him. "You did what I couldn't. You walked away while you still had a choice. Before it consumed everything, you could still walk away," Marcus says. She laughs. "No, I'm too old, too committed. The empire is me now, but you're still you, even without it. That's rare. Most men who have what you had, They disappear when the money goes. They're nothing underneath. But you were always more than your fortune. I just couldn't see it until you proved it. Why did you help us? Marcus asks, after everything. After disowning me, why pay for the medical care? Because you're still my son. And because that girl loves you for reasons that have nothing to do with money, which means she's either crazy or she sees something real. I wanted to give that something real a chance to survive. She pauses. And because Sophie is my granddaughter, no grandchild of mine will suffer because her father had principles. They stand there, mother and son, separated by choices and united by blood. And Marcus understands something he didn't before. You don't have to choose between love and family. Between the life you came from and the life you build, they coexist, messy and complicated, pulling you in different directions until you learn to hold all of it at once without breaking. Back in Berlin, life settles into a rhythm. Marcus consults for startups, teaches occasionally at the university, writes articles about business philosophy that no one reads but Alina says are brilliant. Alina plays with the Berlin Philharmonic, comes home exhausted and alive, practices in the early mornings before Sophie wakes. They're not rich, they're not poor, they're somewhere in the middle. That vast ordinary space where most of life actually happens. One evening, 5 years after he signed away his fortune, Marcus takes Sophie to the park. She's 3 now, fearless and curious, running toward everything that might hurt her while he follows close behind, ready to catch her when she falls. An old man on a bench watches them, smiling. Beautiful daughter, he says. Thank you, Marcus replies. Treasure this. These years go fast. Soon she'll be grown and you'll wonder where the time went. Marcus sits on the bench, keeps one eye on Sophie as she attacks a slide with the determination of a tiny general. Can I ask you something? Do you ever wonder what your life would have been like if you'd made different choices, taken different paths? The old man considers this. Every day, I was offered a job in America when I was young. Big opportunity, big money. I turned it down because I'd just met the woman who became my wife. She didn't want to leave Germany. He points to a woman on another bench feeding pigeons. That's her, 52 years married, 3 children, 7 grandchildren. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd gone to America. Maybe I'd be rich, maybe I'd be alone, maybe I'd be dead, but I'm here, with her, and I've never figured out if that was the right choice or the wrong choice, just that it was my choice and I've lived it. Sophie runs back to Marcus, demands to be lifted, wants to see the world from his shoulders. He hoists her up and she squeals with delight, her small hands gripping his hair. Higher, Daddy, higher. And Marcus thinks about the question that started everything. What would you give up for love? He gave up billions, power, legacy, the version of himself that conquered markets and commanded rooms. But what did he get? These small hands in his hair, Elena's violin music drifting through their apartment in the mornings, Sophie's laugh, his mother's grudging respect, James's careful rebuilding of brotherhood, a life that fits in his arms instead of spreading across balance sheets. Was it worth it? The question feels too small now, too binary, like asking if happiness is worth sadness, or if mourning is worth night. They're not separate things. You can't really have one without the context of the other. That night, after Sophie is asleep and Alina is running through a difficult passage for tomorrow's rehearsal, Marcus sits at his desk and writes, not for publication, just for himself, trying to capture something before it slips away. He writes about the man he was and the man he became, about the difference between wealth and richness, about how the hardest choices aren't between good and bad but between 2 different versions of good, and how you never really know if you chose right. You just learn to live with the consequences until they become your life. He writes, I gave up my fortune for love, and everyone thought I was either noble or insane, but the truth is neither. I was just a man who finally understood that you can own the whole world and still be empty, or own nothing and still be full. The tragedy isn't choosing wrong, it's never choosing at all. It's living a life someone else decided for you, in a skin that never quite fit. Wondering when it's safe to finally be yourself. Alina finishes practicing, comes up behind him, reads over his shoulder. That's beautiful, she says. Sad, but beautiful. Is it sad? A little, because most people never get to choose. They're trapped by circumstances, by poverty, by systems that don't give them options. You got to choose, and that's a privilege even if the choice was hard. She's right. He knows she's right. He had the luxury of walking away because he had something to walk away from. Most people don't get that option. They're born ordinary and stay ordinary not by choice but by necessity. His sacrifice was possible only because he had so much to sacrifice. Do you think Sophie will understand? He asks when she's older. Why I did it. I think she understands that her father loved her mother enough to rebuild his entire life. That's not nothing. That's not a small story. Alina kisses the top of his head. Come to bed. Tomorrow's early. But Marcus sits there a while longer, thinking about the old man in the park who chose love over America, and his mother who chose empire over peace, and James who chose to forgive even when he didn't have to. Everyone making choices that define them, that create the architecture of their days, that add up to something that might be meaning or might just be time passing. He thinks about all the people who will hear this story and judge him. Some will say he was stupid to give up billions. Some will say he wasn't brave enough to give up everything. Some will say he got lucky that it worked out. They'll all be right and all be wrong because stories aren't lessons. They're just things that happen to people who tried their best and hoped it was enough. Years from now, when Sophie asks him if he regrets his choice, Marcus knows what he'll tell her, not yes, not no. But this, I chose love over everything else, and it turned out love was harder and more complicated than I imagined. It required more sacrifice and more compromise and more help than my pride wanted to accept, but it also gave me you, and your mother, and a version of myself I didn't know existed. So no, I don't regret it. I just learned that the question isn't whether love is worth more than money. It's whether you're brave enough to find out. The real answer, the one he's learned through sleepless nights and medical scares and moments of doubt, is simpler than any of that. You don't choose between love and fortune. You choose what kind of person you want to be when you die. Someone who had everything but felt nothing. Or someone who felt everything even when they had nothing. Marcus chose, and whether he chose right won't be clear until the end, when Sophie stands at his funeral and tells her own children about the billionaire who gave it all away. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to see who he was without it. That's the only legacy that matters. Not empires, not fortunes, not names on buildings, just the quiet truth that once, for a moment, you were brave enough to be exactly who you were, whatever the cost, and that has to be enough, because it's all any of us ever really have.